There we've got Dwayne Ibsen is one of our panelists from Ibsen Costume Gallery in Omaha. Dwayne is also an NCA board member. Welcome, Dwayne.
Thanks.
And here's Christy Hutchinson from Theater Garage in Edmonton, Alberta. Christy is a recently joined member. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you.
And here's Debbie Hamrick. Debbie from Debbie's Costume Shop in Columbus. Debbie, thank you very much for joining us today. And we've got one more. This is Jean Flaharty from Mehron, Inc. And Jean is also an NCA board member with a lot of experience in theater. So welcome to our panelists. Thank you very much for being here. Attendees, let me remind you that questions are welcome. If you have a question, please use the chat tab at the bottom of your screen and fire away at any time. You don't need to wait for a specific time to ask questions. I do have some prepared questions for the panelists. So let me go around with these questions. Dwayne, tell us a little bit about Ibsen Costume Gallery and what kind of products and services you offer to the theater community.
I sort of went over this earlier, but we've been in business 40 years. We've built it from nothing to what it is now. And we costume a lot of shows. We do regional opera, we do colleges, universities, high schools, junior highs lately, and it really keeps us going and usually very, very busy. That's about the thrust of the business, because about 80% of our business is doing shows, shipping shows, and designing and building shows.
All right, thank you. Christy, tell us a little bit about Theater Garage, please.
So we sell a lot of products to the industry. So like pro makeup, sewing supplies, fabrics. We have a huge rentals department, but you know, any big houses that have their own shop that they build, we obviously don't sell costumes to them. But the smaller, so schools, universities, colleges as well. We also, we manufacture a lot of our own items here, and we do build shows in-house. My background is the industry, so I'm head of wardrobe for a couple of groups. So I work with them, or if a really big show comes into town and they need to rent a sewing lab, they come and use our space. You know, we kind of, you know, coming from film and theater, you sort of constantly adapt and you're constantly changing. So you kind of just sort of roll with it, like, oh, you need this now? Great, let's do this, you know, or whatever. We do workshops as well. So all of my colleagues from film and theater come and teach workshops to the general public, which is kind of cool. So we can, and to really what it's like, they come and they take the workshop and then we send them into the store with a discount and then they shop, right? Mm-hmm. So, but we kind of do kind of whatever the industry needs. We're there and we do it. My husband's works in audio, so we make mic belts, and I sell mic belts all over Canada and some to the States as well. So yeah, if there's something that somebody needs, we just fill it.
Great, thank you. Debbie, you introduced yourself before, but we have new people have joined us since. So please introduce yourself and tell us about Debbie's costume shop. Oh, Debbie, you're muted.
You can't read my lips. Yeah. So yeah, I started the costume shop about 10 years ago, kind of impulsively when I bought some costumes from an entertainment company that went out of business. I was a theater mom and kind of did all the backstage stuff. And so kind of knew the difficulties of costuming shows, and honestly, theater wasn't even on my mind when I bought the costumes. I was just really buying them for friends and the school that I, was working with. But I sent an email out, and the people came. So I sent an email out to some schools, and they came, and I started costuming for a lot of the shows, the community theaters, going out and doing all of the legwork, from reading the script and measuring to pulling and altering and fitting and dress rehearsals and all of that. So I was doing that for hundreds of shows over these past years. And then I turned it around and said, okay, you guys have to come to me. So now the directors and costumers and peer volunteers or student costumers, they all come to my shop, and I help them pull the show. Unless there is somebody who just wants me to do it, and I will. But a lot of the people that I work with, like, they have their own vision for their show that they want. So a lot of times every show, and this is what I love, looks different, so all the time I do Mary Poppins, they all look a little bit different. They have their standard, looks, but they all have a little bit of their own input in it. So that's what I've been doing for about the past 10 years. I do have the Easter Bunny, I have Easter Bunny mascots and all the holidays, the professional Santa suits and all of that, but that's not my main business. And Halloween, I have a lot of Halloween costumes, but that's also not my main business because it's fall show season. So it's, if they come in, I'll let them rent, Halloween costumes, but it's usually pretty much theater. I'm by appointment only, and I have been the entire time because it's pretty much just me. But like I mentioned earlier, right before COVID, like this was the year I had 30 or 40 shows out in March, and they all, got shut down. And I had 6 employees at that time, and, I shut down, and I'm just starting to come back a little bit, but that's me. That's what I do. I have a really strong bond with the theater community here. When people come in, I know their costumers and I know their need. I always say I'm the bartender of the costuming world because, they come in and talk to me about only things that we understand, working with directors and cast members and trying to find the right things. So that's me.
Great, thank you, Deb. Jean, tell us what Mehron offers to the theater community.
Well, we're the oldest manufacturing makeup company, family owned in the country. We've been around for over 90 years. We started on Broadway, right off the main drag of Broadway. We've moved our location a couple times, and now we're up in the Jersey, New York area. We still manufacture 95% of our stuff right there in New York. We ship it out of there. We handle it all ourselves. And we've got a great team now of makeup artists that are actually working in the office and doing a lot of our social media, which we talked about last time, dealing with our website as well. But Mehron, we started off in theater, and then we've crossed over to beauty, face painting, Halloween, special effects. We do all the different gamuts of makeup out there. And we still, our number one business is selling to retail stores. So for us, you guys are our bread and butter. We did open a website years ago, and I was concerned about how that would affect you guys. And our policy has always been, we put our prices higher on our website than we recommend you do, which forces them to go to you to buy them cheaper than us. And that's always been our policy. So just to put that out there for website people, we're here to support you. In fact, your website is on our website.
Great, thank you.
So our thing with NCA is that we're here to support you guys first. And our makeup, I travel the country visiting your stores. I've been to several of you, and some of you new people I haven't seen yet. So I look forward to seeing you on the road. And I do the staff training. I come in and do workshops for you guys. You can pull your schools in. We can talk to them about what you have to offer. We can train your staff on how to sell our stuff. And I'm your go-to person if you have questions about moving items. What should I carry? What shouldn't I carry? I'm your person. I am a professional makeup artist in Kansas City. With that, I have designed over 100 shows over the last 35 years. and I was teaching for 20 some odd years at a local college. So I know the theater business, and now Mehron has a theater department, theater/educational department that I'm over. So as far as dealing with theater and education, I'm your go-to person. As I'm working equity shows, I'm backstage dressing or doing hair or doing makeup on those shows. So I have a chance to see what those shows are doing and what their makeup requirements are. So I'm excited about when our schools start doing them, that I can help them design their shows also based on what Broadway has done. So that's what Mehron does for you guys. And that's what I do for Mehron for you guys. So bring the questions.
Great, thank you, Gene. Gene, I'm going to start the next question round with you, okay? Because I think you have your finger on the broader theater business. And so let me ask this: are things looking any better now this spring, now that we're moving a little bit past COVID in what you've seen?
Yeah, so I've been communicating with high school teachers and college teachers in the last couple of weeks, because the article we wrote last fall about theaters coming back, but it's just coming back in a smaller formation, is because they didn't know how to do theater. And now they are actually doing productions. There's questions about, how do I do a kiss on stage without physical contact? Do we wear a mask or not wear a mask during the production? And so it depends on the area that they're in, their local health department guidelines, whatever the COVID numbers are. The teachers are being creative on how I'll do this. And they're actually networking on suggestions on how to do the blocking. I just talked to a college here in Kansas City who's doing outside productions under a covered garage canopy. I says, okay, that's awesome. So they take the lighting out, they rig the lighting. There's no parking because there's no one parking on campus. And they have an outside performance, and they're doing Shakespeare in the Park this summer. So they are making plans on coming back, yes. And the way it's done is going to be different. Some of them are still trying to do Zoom plays, and that's not quite working. So they're making them into small mini productions, basically like TV shows. We've had teachers go out and video or shoot the actors live in a location, and then the students submit their dialogue or monologues, and then the teachers will edit them together, and they put together a small little theater presentation, and they'll go ahead and stream them. The playwrights have actually released dozens of plays out there for streaming, which was a huge problem at the beginning of COVID because no one knew what that meant. So almost all playwrights now have streaming privileges, which allows the schools to be able to do that. They are trying to do stuff in small auditoriums where they have limited seating and just do more of them. So it is coming back. It's just going to be, the big musicals ain't going to happen. I'll tell you that right now for at least another year, just because they can't get that many people on stage. And to do musicals, you're singing, and that's a huge problem for through the masks and stuff. They have come up with microphone rigging underneath the mask for being able to project on plays if they're doing it on stage. So there are some ways of getting around that now as well. But Shakespeare seems to be a favorite out there. Comedies seem to be a favorite. Small cast of, say, 15 or less in plays is what they're looking at. So that's what I'm seeing and hearing right now. But I would suspect we're going to have full productions probably by fall if things keep going the way we're going.
All right, thank you, Gene.
Yeah,
Debbie, I'm curious to ask you the same question. You mentioned that you have started to see a little bit coming back. Gene said that they're kind of like in a garage or something, but what are you seeing? What's coming back?
Okay, so right now for spring, I've had maybe a dozen or so shows here in Ohio. And they've just raised the audience capacity to 25%. Everybody's streaming, but they are having small audiences. I actually have a couple of bigger productions going on. Newsies, somebody's doing Newsies, somebody's doing Something Rotten, and they have 50 people in their cast. So they're doing some blocking, like, and putting it together. So they're wearing masks. The way it is here in Ohio, it's like sports, you have to wear your mask during rehearsal, but you can take them off during the performances. Most of the schools aren't taking them completely off during the performances, or they're using those clear masks. But they're doing shows. And those two I mentioned, there's Mary Poppins also. Mary Poppins and Newsies and Something Rotten are the three biggest ones that are going on right now. Some are doing smaller ones like Clue, Charlie Brown, and I'm trying to think. There's several going on. But they're making it work. You know, it's like you said, it's different everywhere. So those are our rules, and they're kind of following them. But I do have a middle school doing a Little Mermaid outside. So everybody's getting really creative. Somebody did do a film version. They went and filmed on location. They did an Alice in Wonderland. That was the summer. But you know, it was slow going there for, you know, all summer. And so they are starting to come back, and they're hopeful. I think here anyway for the fall, we should see things returning, you know, a lot to normal, because every time somebody comes into the shop, I'm like, it's even in the school district, you know, they're all just different. So every time they come in, I'm like, what are you doing? What's your plan? And then I can share that with the next people who are trying to, you know, figure out what they're doing. And I'll be like, oh, well, this school's doing this. And, you know, and so everybody's kind of been creative, and we're a creative industry. So it's just really great to see the kids back, and they so needed it. It was just so heartbreaking last year to, you know, all these kids who it was their senior year and their bell, and, you know, they don't get to perform. It's you know, it was just really hard. So it's exciting. The kids are excited. I mean, my shop, I let them, they can bring their small cast in and do fittings and stuff at the shop. So I, you know, been able to start talking to some of the kids who've been coming in. So it's coming back, but it's, you know, I mean, it's nowhere near what it was for sure.
Debbie, let me suggest something, that if you can take some notes when you're talking to these students and the directors, et cetera, about how they can do this kind of a play, and share those notes with me or with Kathy, the magazine editor, that'd be fantastic. We could write an article about.
I always quiz everybody, so I can let you know what they're doing.
Great, thank you. Okay, Christy, what do you see? What's going on? Are shows coming back to Toronto?
Well, I'm in Edmonton, so I'm in Western Canada.
Sorry.
Yeah, so it's a little different here. I think I'm the only Canadian here, but so producers aren't wanting to invest. So that's the scary thing, because you know, all the rules keep ping-ponging constantly. And so you're finding, like, you know, everybody's got gigs and then pull back, and then everyone's got gigs and then the board doesn't want to do it. So we're finding more and more people, like, big stuff is the slowest to come back, because people just do not want to make that investment. So that's the trickiest part. Here we have a lot of technicians have worked the whole time where they've been paid. So we have different subsidy programs. So most full-time technicians that I know have been on payroll the whole time. So people have just been doing really creative things the whole time. So the industry hasn't completely shut down. In terms of big theater and stuff, I don't even know if we'll be back in the fall. That's what we're kind of aiming for. But realistically, it's so hard. We have really strict rules for singing and then for bands. So, you know, how, like I said, my husband works in audio, so it's just like this impossible task right now. So pretty much they're taking all these theater people and turning us into film people, which has been quite a learning curve. So that's been really tricky. But the film industry, like the professional film industry, has been massive here. Like it has grown and grown. So my local in Edmonton has all gone to the next city in Calgary, because there's endless work there. A lot of American producers actually are coming over here. So so we're really, really, really growing with that. But theater, you know, like somebody mentioned the Zoom thing, it really didn't pan out. Even our Shakespeare is down, our outdoor thing, all of those, because we can't figure out how to make crew safe. We can figure out how to make patrons safe, but not crew. So we're in sort of a state of it just being really frustrating and just not happening. But people are getting paid, so we're all trying to figure out what the heck we can do. Some schools have been a little bit more successful with doing small things, but you know, it's that all liability game. It's just everybody's kind of just too scared to do kind of anything. So but like Debbie said, I find a customer will come in, they'll tell me what they're doing, and then I'll pass that information on to the next customer, and this sort of like round and round, and that's been really helpful to kind of get people busy. The biggest industry in terms of performance that hasn't stopped from day one is the drag community. That's a huge part of my customer base. Drag, I think it was like what, in 24 hours, boom, they were all online on Instagram and doing all these performances and all this sort of stuff. So I've been taking a lot of what they're doing and kind of talking to my fellow technicians and friends in the industry to see if we could kind of use some of their ideas, because holy smokes, did they it was like 5 minutes and they were like redeveloped and ready to go. Like it was really, really drag queen, king and queen, really impressive. So yeah, ours is kind of bad news. It's a drag. It's just like so slow. It's so slow. It's pretty painful. But our rules are so tight. There's no way to put bums in seats in theaters. So therefore, producers are like, nah, we're not putting extra money into it. So.
Thank you, Christy. I have a follow-up question for you, but let me tell the attendees that if you're interested in the drag community, that is something we will be talking about tomorrow during the panel discussions. One of the panelists serves the drag community, so please plan on attending tomorrow also. My follow-up question to you, Christy, is you mentioned the restrictions being very strict there. When it comes to costuming, is there something that you can do or need to do? Is it face masks or something else that helps the cast meet these restrictions, or is it not something you can help with?
It's more the public, so it's more about patrons, and then in terms of technicians working side by side backstage, because you know, you watch, looks like a small show, but there's 20 of us crew jammed backstage, you know, silent in the dark. That's more of the issues. In terms of like fittings, we do a cloth mask and then we do a shield. We quarantine costumes. It's just everything takes forever. Even sewing for the big regional like opera companies here, we have to quarantine, so everything takes about 4 times as long. But it's like I said, there's ways to keep patrons safe. It's the tricky part is how do we convince AHS, our health, like they decide whether we can do it or not. It's convincing them that, you know, we are taking precautions, we are doing this and that, because our industry, it is just so close knit. Like we're always on top of each other. So so we're constantly just trying to tell them we're doing this, but then another variant shows up and then all the rules change and everything else. So you know, it's just been an ongoing kind of struggle.
And Christy, how do you quarantine costumes? Can you explain that process?
Just we basically set them aside for 4 days or whatever company decides how long they want to do that. You know, because we're already used, like we can't, especially say you're building something, you can't just wash it because it's half built, right? So you're going to destroy it. So the only way to do is just to basically set it, you know, we have a rolling rack and we just have dates on donuts. And then, so it's like we fit it on the Tuesday, put it into quarantine, and just kind of goes down the rack and then you take it out. Especially for folks like we are building a costume. So it's really the stitcher using it, it's close up to them. So we quarantine them. I don't know if that's needed. I have no idea. That's what we've been doing. And, but we're also just trying to keep our crew and actors and everybody as safe as possible.
Ed.
Jean, I see you've got a point, and I want to get to you, but let me ask Dwayne to weigh in on the on what he's seen in terms of shows coming up, and then Jean, I'll come back to you. Okay, Dwayne, can you tell us what's going on there?
Well, what I'm finding this year is happening is we're slowly all coming back from this. We either have schools and theaters doing huge shows, or they're not doing shows at all. And most of the community theaters have suspended doing shows until next fall. But the schools are doing huge things. The last show we took in has 182 kids in the cast of Les Mis.
What?
And we've never done a show with that many people in it. And then we have Anything Goes that has 87 kids in it. And we just go down the line and they're huge shows. They do them all with masks, and they watch very carefully. So that's what the tenor is like here. And it's kind of surprising because I was not expecting that to happen at all.
Mhm.
And it has.
And Dwayne, do you do something like Christy said she does regarding quarantining costumes?
Yes, we do. Especially for people who come in and do fittings. They go on a rolling rack, just as she mentioned, and they stay there for a length of time, and they're sprayed and everything else we can do to them to put them back into action.
What do you spray them with?
Vodka. Sometimes we use Lysol. Various, whatever happens to be at hand.
Oh, that's interesting. Jean, you were going to add something to Christy's comments?
Well, and I think it's showing exactly what I was saying earlier. It depends on the region and the state and the county and stuff, because those large numbers are not what I'm hearing across the country at all. So, and that's surprising, because what stage is going to hold that many people 6 feet apart? But here's what I found out too, is that even though the educational market is moving forward, the professional market is going to be forever, because the equity and the unions are telling them, no, we're not going to do it until we're doing it safely. But the equity for actors are saying, until you can sanitize every single workstation individually and you're 6 feet apart in dressing rooms, you're not going to have a production. Well, dressing rooms aren't designed that way. And if you're touring, which is what national tours do, that's every location is a new exposure to something.
Mhm.
So, and if the house can only hold 25% of its attendees, that producer is not making any money.
Yeah, no.
So those tours for this summer, which is what I work every summer, are not even going to happen, which is so sad.
I think, so if I just add something too, is I think also COVID in March, like when, or in Canada, when it all happened to us so quickly, you know, I was sewing at our regional theater and our regional opera at the same time. I just finished building a show. You know, there was a room of, it was IATSE, it was all union build. So it was millions and millions of dollars. We hit the main, our big regional house theater, and we were shut down. Like literally, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I remember doing a show where an actor got like literally stabbed the night before in the parking lot and came and did the show the next day. Like just this like crazy show must go on. And we were stopped, you know, and at that point I was working in the theater as well. And we were in tech and we were stopped, and we all thought, oh, this is crazy, whatever, we'll be back. That is still sitting on the deck, that show. A year later, that opera show, they don't have their own space. We were at a roadhouse and they basically tore it all apart. Millions of dollars of investment gone, and they'll never do the show again because they could never get that kind of cast back, right? And so that was the first time things have really happened like that. So people are extremely gun shy to like really get back into it, because for the first time in our careers, the show didn't go on, you know? And so, you know, money has a long memory. So pro is going to take a really, really long time. And unfortunately, most of my company is with pro. So I'm like, oh, but yeah, it's going to be, what I'm hoping is when we can finally open up again, people will be so hungry for it that they'll just be flocking to it. I hope, not gun shy about like, it's nervous to sit in a house with a bunch of patrons, but yeah, you know, it's concerning, but professional is going to take a really, really, really long time.
Well, that's why you have like 100 kids and 50 and 60 kids in shows, because they're just dying to get back
Mhm.
on stage. They've missed it so much, and so everybody is that they can is coming out. But yeah, it's the region, because they're having some shows here that stinks for you, Christy. That's, I mean, and like you said, so many kids. Like, we shut down on a Thursday, March, whatever, spring, their spring shows. I mean, literally, they're at the school,
Mhm.
costumes on, and the governor and the school system is saying you can't perform.
Yeah.
And everybody, I'm like, and like everybody else, we thought this was going to be a couple weeks long. Okay, well, we're going to have to postpone it later into school year. Oh, okay, well, people are going to come back and do it this summer. Who knew? I mean, I still have a whole Beauty and the Beast set out at a Columbus school right now from last March, because the Columbus city schools were shut completely down. I mean, they couldn't even get back in there to get it. And I'm like, well, I know where it is. It's fine. I'm not needing it right now. And they still have it, because he was really hoping that he could do it again this May, and he just found out they're not going to let them do. It's the city school. These other shows are like our suburbs around Columbus. I mean, every school system is different around here in the way they've been doing things. But yeah, it was just shut down. And I think you're right. A lot of people are gun shy, because I know sets are smaller, and they're trying to save money in different ways, but they're charging to stream. So they are making some money that way, because they're streaming just about, even though they have a small audience, they're still streaming it and selling the stream. So trying to get some money that way, but we'll see.
Thank you. I have a couple follow-up questions I want to ask a couple people, but I want to read some comments from attendees here too. And that gives me also the opportunity to remind attendees, please ask questions. This is your chance to get some advice. Here's two comments. These are both from Jacob Patorti, who is a new member. Jacob, thank you very much for sharing this. He writes, wondering if everyone knows about the special singing masks that benefit Broadway Equity Fights AIDS. I'm using them now for a 35-person cast of Aladdin. So if you're not familiar with that, I'm sure you can learn about that. Thank you, Jacob. And he also writes, also, AEA guidelines have adjusted again. They have done a great deal of work to determine what equity actors can and can't do. Seen lots of additions this summer in New England and New York City area. So good, there's some hope there. And what Jacob mentions is leading a little bit to the follow-up question I wanted to ask Jean, and that is, Jean, Dwayne, with these programs you're seeing with 100+ people in them, other than wearing masks, are they doing something to keep social distancing or something like that that other costume people could know about?
Well, I'm going to say I don't really know how they do these things, but I do know that they will, the Les Mis with 185 people, they are doing outside in a barn.
Okay.
And so they can use, where the barn door opens, their drops can be there. And then they will do the show in front of this barn, and the seats will be like lawn chairs that people bring in and sit. That's what I've been told by the director of this thing. So I think that's how they're adapting to the whole thing.
Got it. Interesting. And Debbie, how about you, in those shows that you've seen with tens of children, or other than masks, what are they doing?
They're trying to block social distance, but they don't always. I mean, I've gone to see a couple shows or watched them online, and I'm like, okay, there's, they're not really social distancing. Now, a lot of them do still, even though they're technically allowed to take the masks off when they're performing, like basketball players do, and put them back on. The ensemble, for the most part, is still wearing the mask during the show. And then the main characters who are performing at that particular moment, they have their masks off. But if they go off stage, they put them on, the crew has them on. So everybody is still wearing masks unless it's really the spotlight is on them. But I don't see a ton of social distancing, unless it's a smaller show. then they've spread them out, but it's not. Of course. Go
I
ahead.
agree with you. We just had a version of the Addams Family that we did, and they had 40 relatives, the gray relatives in it,
Ancestors.
and they did all the masks, but they weren't social distanced at all. They were right beside each other.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're wearing masks, but they might try, but there's, I mean, you got that many people, you just can't do it. So
We're not even allowed to do that. We get shut down.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
It's so strict. Yeah, we get shut down. And I'm in Alberta, which is like Texas of Canada. So it's pretty conservative and stuff. And they're still like, no, you're shut. Like they'll come in and they'll close it and we'll get shut down.
Yeah, we
we had some of that going on this summer. There were a couple community theaters who, tried to safely do a show, and I don't know if, I'm not sure if the powers that be shut them down, but there was certainly a lot of community backlash for it.
Yeah.
Because the community wasn't ready yet to see a show. Even with the mask, they had the shields on or whatever, but they got a lot of backlash for it. But now that the schools, I mean, our schools are fully in session. They were doing hybrid, but starting last week or week before, everybody's back.
Yeah, I think we're fine because our schools are still mostly shut. Like it's a hybrid. All of them were just totally shut down. So like if kids can't go to school, they're not letting us do shows. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just did a show for a community theater, a kids show, and I was allowed backstage helping the kids,
Wow.
and I mean, everybody had masks on, and they had masks on. They didn't have their masks on the show because I noticed that they had them all around their wrist when they were on the stage. They were kind of just, and because I was like, what are they wearing on, costume? What is that? And it was their mask. They had them on their wrist, and then they, put them back on when they walked off stage. But I was backstage for that one, even though I say I'm not doing that anymore. Once in a while, I still show up. But yeah, it's feeling a little good in a scary kind of way.
Let me ask a follow-up question to all four of you, and any of you can reply if you have an answer. Are any of you selling masks that match the costume?
Oh, we did for a little while. Yeah.
I never sold any masks. I never got into doing that, but I have had schools who, some of the parents made matching masks, especially for Clue, and it was actually really cool because, they made the mask the color of, a scarlet or colonial mustard or whatever. So they're trying to incorporate them. I think Something Rotten, I'm doing two Something Rottens actually, but one of them, the parent made matching masks for, everybody. So it is happening. They're trying to incorporate it the best they can into the shows.
Jacob,
In your travels, have you noticed anyone selling masks that seem to match the theater program?
is that to me?
Yes.
No, well, I haven't traveled for one.
Right.
Two is I'm looking at the different masks that are out there, and I had a question for Jacob if he's selling those masks that are made for singers.
Jacob, if you're listening,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. I'm not, simply because we have 5 shows out right now that are all using these singing masks. They're all in the state of Vermont, and it's because our Vermont Arts Council really early on, as soon as Broadway released these singing masks, sent all of us a message and said, our governor will be on our side if we all agree to use these singing masks. And so the answer is no, I'm not selling them because I don't see any room for me knowing that, or for us knowing that, I believe it's 20% goes to Broadway Equity Fights AIDS campaign, but they're $30 each a mask. They come in 2 sizes only. They're very adjustable, but they're very huge bill masks. They look very duckish, and they come in black or natural raw canvas color. But the first problem that we had was I assumed that it would be obvious that we can't alter these masks. However, we sent them out as they are, letting the directors and designers choose black or cream color. And the first show that we saw pictures of, they had hot glued and staple gunned and done all of these things. And in the receipt that every mask comes with, it says you may not alter at all, or else COVID protocol is no longer in place. So precautions. So, now we're sending a huge letter with every show that says, don't touch these masks or else, but they're unique. They're unfortunately safe. And parents are upset, why I can't see their mouths, and costume designers for Aladdin wanted to put chiffon all over them. We're just accepting it. And in fact, I'm not letting any rentals out of this building unless they're purchasing those masks. So whether they use them or not, we can't determine, but they have to agree to buy one for every cast member.
Well, I have seen these, there's a grid mask that fits inside your regular medical ones that have the mask from rubbing up against the mouth. And I've seen people use those that allow the microphone to rest underneath the mask without rubbing on the microphone. And
Absolutely.
they're using those, but I don't know where to get those.
Oh, I can send a link for those. I tried those masks, they remind me of like miniature colanders or strainers on your face, right?
Right.
I tried them. Aside from costuming, I direct and produce theater and film. And in our voice studio here in Vermont, we tried those with whatever mask our clients came in with, and they're just popping off left and right for us. The singing mask is so unfortunate to look at, but every two shows we've been able to do now that the designers had plenty of room. They actually are making these little new versions of mic belts that are actually attached to your ear. I'm not mass producing those either. I think all of us should be mass producing everything that we're inventing right now. But anyway, maybe that's for Theater Garage in Canada.
Yeah, we ship out a lot of mic belts. I live with an audio technician, so it was like, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about mic belts. That's wardrobe and audio come together. It sort of just brought up, sorry if I'm going to ask a question, take over my role, but it's really interesting. I've been finding more and more theater people, we did the Zoom thing and we were good sports about it, and we did this, and now we're all kind of like, can we just wait until it's back? Like, I'm finding more and more folks are just kind of like, they're tired of seeing these giant masks on people. They're tired of trying to do a fitting with a shield and a mask, and and I'm finding more and more, I don't know if it's the year exhaustion or what's going on, but more and more I'm finding people are just like, I'm just gonna wait. Yeah,
to me, the big problem, oh, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead, Jacob.
no, the issue I'm dealing with, at least in New England, it's so funny to hear even those of us in the States in drastically different places, it's against the law right now for anyone to try to do a 180 person cast of anything. However, oh, sugar, what was I trying to say? Something that was unfortunate. I don't even remember. I lost my train of thought. Oh, the Actors Equity Association. This is the unfortunate part. 95% of our business, which, we've just joined NCA months ago, but been renting costumes since I was in Lorraine Brown's shop, Fabian's, learning how to do it from her as an early teenager in Vermont. If you're in the union and you have all the money, you can do this. We're preparing for a production of the Rocky Horror Show, which was supposed to open on Broadway last year, but the union, we have 40 technicians / actors coming to Vermont from out of state, and their quarantine is 14 days, no matter what our governor says. And as long as we clock that with the union stage manager, then after those 14 days, those equity actors, like film, get to be in the rehearsal room with no masks on. They're all tested often. And then they go to the stage with much less concern compared to all of our community theaters. And I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, all of our money comes from community theater. So we have had a lot of, pushback because, I don't know, I just quickly say, you can't rent our costumes unless you spend an extra 30 per person on one of these singing masks. It's the only way we feel comfortable allowing our costumes out right now. Well, it's dangerous because we also have no intention of accidentally upsetting people or losing clients in 3 years when this hopefully isn't a problem. But I've definitely ruffled some feathers on accident, especially with the idea that you can't dye them, you can't paint on them, you can't do anything. You have to just use them.
It's also about protecting your store and your brand, right? So you're sort of like, you know, you hear about these performances, and of course we want to make a sale and we want to be connected. But then it's like, what if that performance hits the news and there was an outbreak, you know?
We had that,
right? Like, so you have to be,
we did
super careful. And, you know, and the same thing, like, we never had masks by law in my province for a long time, which was ridiculous. And then we, you know, but my store, I was like, I've got a staff member who has asthma. We got to be careful. So I enforce masks wearing of customers if you come in. You know, we upset a lot of people. There's a lot of freedom fighters and drama. But in the long run, I thought, well, top priority is safety. And second, I want people to know that when COVID is over, Theater Garage was on the right side, and we were on the side of taking precautions, you know? And so I find sometimes interacting with some customers and what they're doing, and like, you're just like, please don't tell me you know what I mean? But it's quite a gamble, and it's a tricky to navigate these days, right?
And our problem is the way 4 years ago when we opened the Big Red Barn costume shop, we are totally on reserve. So we're not renting to anyone that calls and says, hey, can we rent this now? We have about a dozen companies that pay us annually to use our stock, regardless of whether they use it or not. They each get up to 3 productions with no more than 30 actors until they pay more. But I wanted to purchase this building so I could keep hoarding costumes. And it was the only way to do it. How do we quickly get deposits for all of these hypothetical shows? So our huge problem, you know, 4 years ago in these contracts, there was nothing about a pandemic, of course. So now, thank whoever, no school, no regional theater, no film project, nobody's asked us for their money back with their silent year. All we've said is it will go to the next year, whenever you want to start your next show. And thank God everyone said yes, or else we'd be refunding money that it's not a secret we don't really have.
I think that a lot of the theaters want to take care of the costume shops. I know because, you know, I mean, when I didn't charge most of the people whose shows got shut down, even though they had my costumes, because I know that ticket sales, and I mean, I know they're out a bunch of money anyway. And again, I thought they're going to do it in a couple of weeks for the summer. Had I known, I would have. But most of those people did end up paying me. I've gotten plenty of donations from theaters. They're just helping me like pay my rent through this, because I mean, from day to day, I literally don't know if I'm going to be able to stay open. And they know that, and they don't want me to leave. So they're doing whatever they can to, you know, help me. Because right now I don't have any employees, you know, so I don't have that. It's just me, but my building is pretty expensive. So they've been donating money or doing whatever, they volunteering or doing whatever they can to help out, because I don't know what's going to happen this summer when the schools aren't doing shows. I mean, I'm planning on doing some new things, like some workshops and things like that, some camps for kids, and because I have a big outdoor space. So I'm hoping that will generate some kind of income until fall starts, and we can hopefully be back to normal.
Let me interrupt here, folks, because we only have 5 minutes or so left on this panel discussion. And I want to use Debbie's question there or comment as a segue into a different topic for a minute. And this question I'm going to ask, I want to send out to the attendees also, because I know there are a lot of you listening who are dealing with these same issues. And here's my question. How have you, or have you in some way, with something different or innovative or interesting, brought in some revenue this year to make up for some of the lost revenue from your theater? So you don't need to reply to that, but if you have something that you think you can share, I want to bring that to the attendees. If you have something, attendees, use the comments tab to send those things, and then I'll share them. Or if one of our 4 panelists has something or has seen something like that, please let me know.
I have not. So it was somebody talking.
Debbie, go ahead. Mhm.
But I do, like I said, have some things in mind. Like I want to do some costume camps this summer, and I'm actually thinking about doing a photography studio, a themed costume photography studio where they can rent this, reserve the space, bring their small group in and just take pictures in costume, kind of like the old timey costumes at carnivals. So those things are kind of on my mind. Like I say, it's one way, either close it down or try to do all these other things until the theater's back. But those are some options that I have that I'm working on.
Great idea.
We've been making masks by the thousands and thousands and thousands, like a lot of people. Pretty thrilling work, but whatever, it pays. But I kind of looked around to all of my, technician friends that are kind of bored at home, and what are they doing? And they're all doing handcrafts. So I heavily invested in cross stitching supplies and other things, and that's been paying the bills. So selling embroidery supplies and things like that. I have a fabric section in my store, but I never really had that much stuff. And we've been selling a lot of it. And kind of back to what we were talking about before, how theater will support theater. And I totally agree, because I look at my customer base, that's theater, and then I look at just sort of other. And when it all went down, who was demanding money back and who was like, you know what I mean? And theater was like, we'll catch you later, whatever. And then even this past year, if anybody's had any sewing project or any little thing, they gave me a ring and they said, what can you take of this? How can we support you? How can we started doing paint nights. So like some scenic artists that I know were doing paint nights. And so I was supplying paint, and, we were doing workshops, and we were doing lots of things like that. But basically I looked around what everybody was doing at home, and I just made those investments. And then also back to drag is killing it. Like it's crazy how well that industry just took off online instantly. So I was a huge clientele of mine already. My store is already pretty helpful to the drag community, but basically anything they asked for, I was like, I'm on it, I'm getting it. And I just like, don't have to ask me twice. And I just got something. So yeah, that's what I did. I basically spent all of my money in all of the things that were working online and that people were doing at home to keep themselves entertained.
Great
And-
ideas. Dwayne, Jean, go ahead.
I just want to address something real quickly before we wrap this up, because it's theater related. Is as people are coming back, we're getting a ton of questions about makeup safety, and they haven't used their kits for a whole year. Is it still good? Blah blah blah, things like that. So we've been working on that since March of last year. We came out with hand sanitizer that would fit into your makeup kit just for your own hands, but we've now come up with this spray cosmetic sanitizer that will sanitize either cream and or powder foundations. So they can use it on anything that's in their kit to restore that, or to give them peace of mind that it's not been contaminated. And we still want to push also the individual kits that we have for the high school kids, because they'll have their own. And that's the easiest way of getting around all that, is not by sharing it by any means. And we've been doing that for years anyway. I just want people to know that as people are calling now to say it, send them to us, give them my number or whatever. Jacob, I would like to talk to you about what's going on in your store. And Debbie is you as well, as far as your makeup requirements. But we're getting a lot of that. So we do have sanitizers out there, and there's not just alcohol, people. Please don't do that. It can break down some of your stuff. But anyway, I just want to put that out there, so when you're coming back, you'll be able to answer those questions.
Thank you, Jean. Dwayne?
Particularly, one thing that we did last summer that helped a lot was we had a garage sale, and we did it totally on Facebook. And we had 150 costumes that we gleaned out and sold. We photographed them against a black background, put a price on them, and you could buy them directly through Facebook. And then there was a pickup day assigned, which was a Monday from 1 to 4. And they were all bagged on racks in front of the shop with the number of the person who bought it. And they came up and picked up their thing and left. And so there was never any contact made.
Great idea. And I wanted to note, Jacob used the chat to tell us that he has been selling things at flea markets, and that what he's selling is things that haven't rented in years. So I think that connects to Dwayne's concept. If you have costumes that you haven't rented or that are worn or something that they're not being used, now maybe a great time to take the time to glean them and sell them.
I'm going to do that in these next couple of weeks. I've been purging and I've donated tons, thrown away a ton, and the stuff that's in between, I'm going to just have a bag sale. Here's your bag. Here's how much it costs. Fill it up and take it. I'll have that when it gets a little bit warmer so I can have it outside and just kind of make some money by selling my first purge in 10 years. So I've got a bunch of stuff.
Great.
I'll be there.
Well, I want to conclude this panel discussion with just a summary of these ideas for making money while theater is still going very slowly. We had the idea of doing a costume camp and doing a photo studio type thing from Debbie. Thank you very much. Christy talked about making masks by the thousands. Of course, that's something NCA members have done very well. Also, Christy talked about selling cross-stitching supplies and paint supplies and craft supplies, things like that. I think these are natural things that people might turn to a costume shop for. And in fact, if you look back, there are some articles on the website and some recorded webinars on the member side when we interviewed some members early in COVID about how they were making money, and crafts was one. So if you like that idea, view these videos, you'll get some more tips. And then from Dwayne and Jacob, we learned about selling your used costumes that aren't being rented anymore. So I think those are some great positive ideas, and I'd like to end this panel discussion with that positive idea.